You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And thanks as always for making us your first listen. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you're going to get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan, back to wrap up the week. Chris, before we get back to the Jones, Saturday night as the Red Raiders play host to the Bearcats of Cincinnati, and we will get to what we anticipate being there at the Jones as far as a blackout under the lights, the environment that we've seen so far, and an edge restored to your home field so far in the Joey McGuire era. We'll get to that coming up in just a moment, but wanted to get started today on the offensive side of the football for Texas Tech and take a listen to some comments from Red Raider quarterback Baron Morton. This based in something that we've seen Tech make hay within so far this year, and that has been obviously establishing some things on the ground with Taj Brooks, but then really from a play action or run pass option perspective, Texas Tech has really been able to do some things that have been, well, sights for sore eyes. Hadn't seen a lot of that in some recent memory, and I want to talk to you about why that is. But first, let's take a listen to Baron Morton talking about the play action, the RPO impact this season, and then you'll hear him towards the end of his comment spin it towards some of what we anticipate to see from Cincinnati defensively and how the Red Raiders will react to that. Here's Baron Morton.
You know, we do a lot of play action too this year. The play action game is going to open up a lot of passes downfield just because we have such a good running back in the backfield, and also, Cam Dickey and Jacoby too. The play action pass and, the way we balance the run pass game, I think that's going to be really beneficial throughout the rest of the Big 12 play. I would say it's a little bit more of a RPO play action. We got so many talented guys outside, and they can run routes too. So there's a lot of guys that are in conflict that are going to play zone. If you're in the zone, there's always a guy that's going to trigger if it's run or pass. And so just to read that guy and just to really take advantage of the opportunities we get of where that boundary player is, wherever he's triggering at, what RPOs can we run behind him. That's for sure helping us a lot. Going back again to our play action, the three high safeties, they're triggering with, they only have a 5-man box, and so, we got 5 guys blocking 5, and so, we on paper we should be really good, but they're going to start filling in those holes, when we start handing the ball off to Taj. So again, leaning back on our play action, our quick game too, with the 3 high safety stuff that they do. We should be able to attack, the short yard, not get tired of taking the easy throws. And then, at the end of the day, just when the play action comes, be able to, hold up front and to get those routes ran.
I thought that was interesting to hear him kind of mention when you're getting a zone look, that man that's going to trigger the decision that's made at the line of scrimmage, and also kind of talking about that boundary player that will trigger some things as well. And from a layman's perspective, I'm kind of curious maybe what he's alluding to. And Chris, I think that's something that it's lost, I know, on me as a fan sometimes. All that's going on at the line of scrimmage pre-snap, there is a play call, and then there's about how many other decisions that are being made at the line of scrimmage between the quarterback and the OC, who now you might remember are allowed to communicate with one another for a period of time as well.
Yeah, the play clock's ticking down. Bands are playing. There's noise. Maybe you got smashed on the last play and you're like, dang, fill-in body part really, really hurts. Okay, what am I doing again? There is a lot. I think he's talking a lot about play action just because if you remember back to North Texas, same scheme, maybe some subtle differences, but that's really what that was, where you made a lot of money in that game is Barron's eyes have to be up. In most cases, you put that ball in the breadbasket and you're just watching. Okay, I got my eye on you. Are you coming? Are you staying? Like, what are you doing? And then that's in the simplest terms, he's trying to make a quick decision. If you come up, we're throwing it. If you're going to follow that guy, then let's just get. I mean, and so because other than that, there should be what you hear hat on a hat. There should be enough of your personnel theoretically that can handle what's there, but you're trying to pick on the conflict player, the one that's got to make a decision, and you're trying to make him, tip his hand. Like, okay, what are you doing? And that's why you have to be patient in the play action. You keep that ball in the breadbasket as long as you can. Ride it. That's that mesh point and everything, and then okay, like you've declared, and it all happens very fast. That's why RPO works so well, specifically against these schemes. The one thing that we've seen with this, double cloud, 3 high safety, all the stuff, i.e., let's keep everything in front of us. We're not going to get beat deep defense. Okay.
Yeah.
And there's a variety of different ways, the 4-2-5, the whatever, 3-3-5, and everything in between. Is that's why tight ends have come back into the equation, because a lot of times, not every time, but a lot of times when you run what they call 12 personnel or 13 personnel, which is basically 1 back, 2 tight ends, or 1 back, 3 tight ends, it brings some of those back end players. Okay, well, dang it. Now I can't sit back here. Now I've got to come up to the line of scrimmage. You're almost forcing them to bring, and that's where you can hit your stuff over the top. That's where play action works. And if you hit that pass, there's just nobody back there if you can complete it. So it's, again, the game within the game, but that's a lot of what Barron is going to have to do Saturday night, because this is, and there'll be some changes. There'll be some things that you're going to have to do differently than you did against North Texas, because guess what? Cincinnati probably has watched this film once or 50 times, so, well, this is what they're going to do to attack that scheme. So it's up to Zach and Joey and Clay McGuire and Josh Cochran and everybody on that side of the ball to kind of tweak and adjust and show them some different things and whatnot.
Yeah, and I can't remember who the coach was now at the top of my head, but was listening to a coach from another conference. I cannot remember what team he was representing, but was talking this week about adjustments made in game or adjustments made at halftime. And he kind of talked about, you prepare all week long based on film and what you've seen from these guys, and then you roll out there and they're not giving you any of those looks, which is pretty typical. They've switched something up, they're changing something up, and either it goes well or it goes poorly. If it's going poorly for the opposition, they're reverting back to what you have seen before. And it's kind of like this sort of cat and mouse game of, I guess, how creative you want to be, or maybe how different or varied you want to be from what you have shown in some previous weeks. And I think, as we saw against Arizona State, Chris, from, say, North Texas to Arizona State, you wound up in some similar looks when the ball was snapped that you saw be successful against North Texas. But that's not quite the way you approach the line of scrimmage whenever you, I want to say, break the huddle like it's 1962 again. We're not breaking a huddle, but you get the idea. Whenever you're lining up to begin with, it's not really where you're set. And then you get some motion. I've noticed this pad on a butt cheek, left or right, to kind of shift a ball carrier over by just a step here or there. I've been really intrigued by sort of the angle that gives Brooks or Dickey or whoever it might be. As far as that goes. But man, there's so many little tricks and misdirection and deception that plays out on both sides of the line of scrimmage for these guys. It's just really, really difficult as a fan to keep up with it all.
It's chess pieces. So sometimes you move your running back one side of you to the other because you want to make that linebacker move one way or the other, or you want to, what they would term, force, you leverage or put more people on this side of the field because you're going, or hey, they're blitzing from over here. I want my blitz pickup over here. I mean, there's, and it's funny about, I think the halftime adjustment. I'm guilty of having said this a lot of times throughout the years as well.
First, today's episode brought to you by Robinhood Gold. And with Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for high society. Now the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash, receive unlimited 1% deposit bonuses, and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth, and these generous benefits are now available for only $5 per month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. So sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC.
And it's funny about, I think the halftime adjustment. I'm guilty of having said this a lot of times throughout the years as well. It is one of the most overrated, things that there is.
Yeah.
Especially so in football. I think basketball, there is something to that. In basketball, you've got a little more time to, and now there with the video that you've got, basketball and football are using iPads and video and all that stuff. You adjust as you go. Sometimes you just don't have time, one, to wait until halftime, and two, right. you don't have time during halftime to like go through wholesale changes. I mean, it's get into the locker room, get a drink. Hey, let's talk it up real fast, and then we're back out. I mean, there's just not a lot of. It goes really quickly. You're not redrawing up a playbook in there. It's adjusting as you go. I think so.
Yeah, it'd be kind of funny to think about like a big play being made at, say, the end of the first quarter and like, Coach, what are we seeing? What are we doing? Hell, I don't know. Let's wait till halftime and then we'll figure it out. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's like, no, we got to get it figured out right now. And so technology obviously aids in that process. But that I think it's a cliche we've all gotten into. Basically, if you have a good second half or a better second half than you did first half, the adjustments must have been amazing at the halftime break. And we just kind of lump it all into that. I am curious, as we're talking about this play action stuff and some of the RPO stuff that we've seen be successful for Tech. I know you've got to have a ground game for the defense to account for, I think for the most part, for that to really, pay off for an offense. So some years when you haven't had that, it's probably not that big of a weapon for you. But I'm kind of curious from last year to this year, what's your feel on kind of a difference as to why it has paid off so often this year? Because obviously you did have a ground game last year, but I don't remember you, and we're still fairly early on into the season, but I don't remember you hitting so often on some of what you've been able to hit on this year, particularly over the last couple of weeks in that category. Is it more pass catcher related? Is it quarterback related? Because we are also talking about a revolving door there a season ago. What do you make of the difference we've seen from 23 to 24 in that kind of offensive area?
Well, I think part of it is you're seeing more of this scheme early on in the season. That's one of the things you can pick at, or that it puts them in conflict, to use that word again.
Yeah.
I think we would all have to say, though, I mean, some of this with what you're doing is absolutely pass catcher related and QB related. The growth and maturity of Barron, he was always mature. I think his game has grown up, like in his understanding of the game, football IQ, however you want to term it.
Yeah.
Throwing the ball away type stuff, but like understanding what the defenses are doing and all that's grown up. But I mean, we remember us talking about that earlier in the week. Josh Kelly, more catches and yards than freaking everybody that exited the program, back in December, right. Which was, what did we, I mean, I didn't count Xavier White in that deal. He graduated, but I mean,
yeah, those that are still playing.
Miles, Bradley, LaFungi, Sparkman, York, King, Sparkman. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, and he's done better than all. I mean, and I think we would agree Caleb Douglas has been pretty darn good too.
Absolutely.
Caleb Douglas had a few drops, but I can live with that with as well as he's playing. Because it's been pretty consistent. He's got some juice. I just, and Coy Aiken, I think, has gotten better and has matured some and is a heck of a player. So
he's been allowed to kind of play his part.
Yep.
I think all of them have sort of been allowed to kind of play their part and not have to do, too much.
And I think Conyers needs to be mentioned too, and just some of this, and Miller and your tight end group, I think, is as advertised.
Yeah.
In that they've all got their strengths and their weaknesses. I think that while not all perfect, and again, some are really good at this and not as good at that. Whatever, collectively, been pretty good, man. I mean, it's been pretty good because Mason really helps the run game. The other guys help you with targets, and at some point Mason's going to get some catches and touchdowns and all that stuff. But it really puts defenses in a bind because these are interesting toys that you can, or pieces on the chessboard that you can really utilize a variety of different ways, and that's what's fun because they're hybrids. It's the offensive version of what a hybrid or a star is on defense or whatever. And because they can do so many different things, and I think Zach has done a good job of doing that. Run game, blocking across the middle, on a swing pass, down the field, all the above.
Yeah, and you're really making me think about all of your pass catchers, the wide receivers and the tight ends included, those frontline guys that we've really seen out there a lot. They all have a little tick to them that's somewhat different, whether it's Conyers, Miller, or Tharp comparing to one another, something that's a little different about each of them. I think you look at Kelly, Douglas, Aiken, even if you wanted to get to McCray or a Hudson or a Brady Boyd, something that's a little bit different about them as well. So it's been really nice to see some of those things complement one another. Has not been perfect, but we've been feeling pretty good for 2 weeks running now following that excursion to Pullman, Washington. So hoping that you're going to be able to keep that rolling. Obviously, helps when you got number 28 on the field to make it all go. Still kind of feel like he's the straw that stirs the drink, so to speak. And I'm a big fan of those freshmen behind him. Don't make any mistake. I've liked what we've seen from Cameron Dickey and Jacoby Williams, but there just is no filling the shoes of Taj Brooks if that were to have to happen. So curious to see what we're going to get this time around. We talked some on the last episode about what Houston was doing defensively, what they were able to do against the Houston Cougars. We'll see what Houston's season turns out to be. They may be one of the worst teams in the Big 12 Conference, so I don't exactly know what to make out of that shutout, but a goose egg is going to get your attention anytime that's on the scoreboard. But Chris, I don't think there's any doubt that really, and one thing that obviously cut the knees out from underneath Houston, we talked about this with Baron Morton specifically. He's got a lot to do with it, but he's not the only one. But the ability to avoid the catastrophic mistake so far for the last couple of weeks has really been something that's helped Texas Tech out quite a bit. Tech is not going to be the most talented team this year. I mean, you are what you are. You've got some nice talent upgrades, but your margin for error is still very, very thin. But I think we've kind of seen like, hey, if you can play within yourself and not get in some of those crisis situations as far as huge negative plays or turnovers, obviously, then you're going to have a chance to win a heck of a lot more than you lose this year. And I know that's easier said than done, but how many years have gone by recently where you're just thinking, man, if you did not shoot 10 of your 10 toes off yourself, we might have had a chance to win this ball game. And you go back just a few weeks, we were having that kind of conversation, but the last two have been pretty satisfying to watch in that regard.
Yeah, this is, I think, and we'll see kind of what we get as we roll along here, but I really grasp that people are starting to get a feel for whether they like it or not. And I think there's mixed opinion out there.
First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. And NFL fans, you can start this season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Say you're watching a game, you get hit with a hunch, an instinctual calling. Well, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you're going to place your bets to keep up with everything going down in real time as you submit that slip. And right now, FanDuel is going to get you started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's right. $200 in bonus bets guaranteed with only a $5 bet out the gate at FanDuel.com.
I really grasp that people are starting to get a feel for whether they like it or not. And I think there's mixed opinion out there. of what Joey's vision would be for the identity of this football program. In that we want to be able to do a variety of things on offense, but it really starts with defense. And if we have to punt it or get away from this aggressiveness on fourth down, that's what we'll do. It's been interesting watching, because I think sometimes you grow into the identity of your quarterback. And I think that you are kind of seeing that as well, where you see points where he can, because I mean, statistically, it's pretty good. Like if you look at his numbers, and I just think people have to understand, and I think that some don't, but the days of averaging 400 yards a game through the air where that everybody does it, those days are just, I think that era is a different era now than what you get right now. So the 400-yard day or the 300-yard day, that's a bit more abnormal than it used to be. As we see rushing numbers go up, and the defensive schemes that we've spent so much time talking about have changed and been tweaked and all that. But I think you're kind of morphing your identity around what Barron is good at and what he can do. And I think one of the things he's gotten a lot better at is just, I hate this word, but this is what it is, managing the game/situation or managing his offense.
Yeah.
And he's not a game manager. I get triggered when somebody would suggest that about a Texas Tech quarterback. That's not what I'm saying. He has just gotten better at this part of playing that position. And it takes a bit. That's why it's the young ones that come in and do so many things well. I mean, how about this? Like, I thought that I'm going to take it away from like the Tech part, but just the QB part, I'm going to stay on. Because Tyler Shuck goes to Louisville. Louisville's ranked. They're doing well. He's playing well, all that stuff. But it was like, okay, do I want 1 year Tyler Shuck or like 2 or 3 years of Baron Morton? It's a tough decision to make, but kind of an easy one, right? Think about what Oklahoma did. So your situation is actually, I think, worked out pretty well. Think about what Oklahoma did. They told Dylan Gabriel, who was at one point one of the tops in the Heisman list and preseason, all that, because they want to keep a hold of Jackson Arnold, and he's been benched. Right. I mean, and you ran off the guy. I mean, it's just these kinds of situations and decisions, they're wild to me. Does Will Howard quarterback a Kansas State team in Provo, Utah better than Avery Johnson did? I don't know, maybe, but that's the era that we're in, and I think though that your situation has worked out pretty well, but not every one of them has, and they're tricky decisions to make.
Well, and I think you're talking about the era of these big inflated passing statistics, but I think also, even if that era was still in progress at large, I think the thought of having a football team that does not have to go the way exclusively of your quarterback is also no great sin. And it's probably not something that we as Tech fans are all that accustomed to as well, because there were, I don't know how long, a decade and a half, 2 decades, whereas like, well, if your quarterback does not light it up, you ain't winning and you ain't got much of a chance. And I know that they've still got to be big time contributors, obviously, but if you have a football team that is able to establish something a little bit more balanced, then maybe it doesn't quite have to be that way. And it's okay if it's only a 200-yard day or whatever it might be for the QB, because your running back's going for 135 and your defense had 3 stops on fourth down and a takeaway or whatever. That's allowed also. Yeah. So I think just something else Tech specific to kind of add to that layer of what we've seen so far this year. Before we get out of here, I want to get to something that we have seen so far in the Joey McGuire era. And man, you want to talk about another sight for sore eyes. It has been a home field advantage that has been restored to Jones Stadium and restored to Texas Tech football. Once upon a time was a very difficult place to play. I think under the lights, under the sun, breakfast ball, whatever it might have been, going back to the Mike Leach era, it was difficult for a road team to get wins in the 806. You lost some of that luster, obviously, over the previous decade, but that was one of the things that we were really hoping would be restored. One of the things that we thought would be very, very high on the list of goals and objectives whenever Joey McGuire or any previous head coach took over. Like, all right, what do we want to see? Well, one thing, we want to see a home field advantage restored. Coach McGuire and company still trying to figure out how they can improve on the road, but they have been very, very tough at home at Jones Stadium since he has arrived. And, of course, a lot of that has to do with the environment, which I don't even feel like we have gotten back to full tilt just yet. I don't think it's been bad, but I don't think it's been quite foaming at the mouth as we have seen in some other eras. But before we get to our thoughts on it in full, let's get to the thoughts of the guy that was most recently bringing a team into this building. Now, he is a Pac-12 transplant, so no surprise it made a big impression on him, but it's Arizona State head coach Kenny Dillingham talking about what he found on the road in Lubbock, Texas.
One of the things just playing one game at Tech is kind of what we expected, and I've alluded to. The home field advantages in this league are real. They're absolutely real. And if you're a team that doesn't have a distinct home field advantage, your football team is at a disadvantage in this league because there are real home field advantages. That environment we played in at Tech was a real environment. It was loud. There were cowbells right throughout the game. There were tortillas. And it sounds like comical, but that environment, they're 18 to 22-year-olds. Like, we got to be able to respond to that environment better and keep our emotions lower with all that, right? When the student section is behind your bench and they're yelling at you and saying things, relax. But you're not used to playing in those environments all the time when you play at different games, that we played in the past. Now you're in it. And we've got to be able to manage that better. I should have prepped our guys better, probably. I should have, gone and played some videos of fan interaction from the Big 12 and student interaction, what they say to you and try to get under your skin, because that is new. That's new to some of our guys. And I probably did a bad job with that. And then we, on the reverse side, need to create that environment. And the first few games at home, we played really well and we had a good environment. But, these games that we're going to are sold out. Bottom line, they're sold out. Every single seat is filled, and they're loud, and they're engaged, and they're passionate. And if people don't think that's an advantage, you're wrong. And if we want to compete in this league, we're going to need an environment at home that combats that. We're going to need an environment at home that people are like, oh, we have to go play there. And that is a real advantage in this league, and that is a real difference maker that I really think this league is different from the last league.
Chris, I know you and I have seen it at its best, and I, again, still feel like we're cooking at about a 7.5 to 8 out of 10 right now. I don't think we've gotten back to at its best, but a competitive football team is what must come first. And Joey McGuire has, for the most part, restored that, particularly at home. So I'm hoping we're going to see a lot of this to follow and maybe get established as something a little bit more consistent now moving forward.
Yeah, and I think that it's a stark contrast what Kenny Dillingham and the Pac-12 were dealing with week in and week out. What you'll say what you want to about some of these schools, but they're showing up in Ames, they're showing up in Stillwater, they're showing up in Manhattan, they're showing up in Morgantown most of the time. They're showing up in Lubbock, Waco and Fort Worth, hit and miss, but you get the idea. There's some serious juice in some of these places, but I didn't think that the atmosphere versus Arizona State was too crazy. In fact, I even think, you tell me, because you were in the middle of it like I was, semi-mild compared to what I've dealt with before.
It was fine. It wasn't a bad one, but it was
correct. It wasn't memorable.
Yeah, it wasn't full tilt. I know that.
I didn't walk away going, "Ooh, man!" And so that just tells you what Arizona State has been in before. Yeah. I will tell you that I wonder if enough is being made about how this environment could and will affect Cincinnati, because, like Houdini said, the freaks come out at night, and I think our man Barron even said it gets freaky in the Jones at night, and he's right. Houdini nailed it.
They play in a 40,000 seat stadium.
That's if that. And so I haven't really done anything like that this year. So I just think that the crowd and whatnot will play a part in this game, because I've seen analytics like projections of this game that say Cincinnati should be favored by 3 or 4 points. I look at the Vegas number, and it's like down to like 2.5, depending on where you look. And a lot of that doesn't factor in the crowd. It may factor in location, but I mean, I think the crowd has various levels of how it can affect a game. And if you give them something to cheer for early, I think they can absolutely rattle a team's cage for sure, to the point where they crumble. But if there's nothing to cheer for and all those things, then it's like a non-factor. That's not what you want either. So I'm real curious what a sold out crowd with the new South End and a meaningful conference game looks like, sounds like, how Cincinnati tries that on for size, all of it come Saturday night at the Jones for sure.
Yeah, I can't wait to get back to it, and looking forward to a raucous environment Saturday night. Chris, it's been a raucous week with you, as it always is. Appreciate all the time. Looking forward to Bearcats and Red Raiders. Enjoy the ball game. Hopefully it is an experience that is easily enjoyable for all the good guys in red and black of the 806 variety, that is. And we'll get back together on the other side to talk about it for better or worse, man. Looking forward to it.
Lonnie Anderson, we love you. Yeah, thank you for all you've done to get us through this week, and all of those things. Like Skyline chili, do they put beans in that chili? Because if so, that's what Yankees must do, because they don't belong. Otherwise, it's meat sauce with beans. Anyway, that's the Skyline chili talk. With that, I'm done. Enjoy. I hope to see you at the Jones tomorrow. Keep hope alive, everybody. Tommy Tuberville did irreparable harm to both of these programs, but we're better off. We're better off now because he's. Well, I don't know if we are better off now because he's where he's at. I don't know.
He's got even more power now somehow.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, hey, guns up, people.
That's right. We will unite in our disdain, if nothing else, of Tommy Tuberville. Okay. Enjoyed it all week long. Thank you guys so much for being out there and joining us. As always, make sure you get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Shout out to the everydayers out there. And if you are one of those everydayers, then why are you not a Matador Mob insider? Hit the show notes to find the link there, your direct line to Chris and I anytime on any subject. And there has been continuing Lonnie Anderson conversation there as we've been mobbing with you this week. So thanks to those who are already there. Again, hit the show notes for the link. You can try out a free 14-day trial if you are interested, to use industry jargon. We stay mobbing. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks for the time, and we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.